Well, if I wanted to be virtue signalling, I might say that I'm lighting this candle for all those people who died in all the wildfires and the plane crashes that we've had lately. But I'm not doing it for that reason at all. I wouldn't dare to do virtue signalling because I've got a difficult video to make, and so instead of just doing it today, I'm going to have fire and water next to me so that these can aid. First, the water aids in receiving the information that I need to convey in the video, and the fire enhances the creative ability, play the guitar and speak the words that are needed. And already I feel a little bit too energized with the fire. In fact, it's making me quite excited. I better start playing. Some of them knew pain, and for some of them it was only the moment that mattered. The brave and crazy wings of youth, they went running around in the rain, and their feathers went so fine, grew torn and tattered. Their tired wings for the resignation that living brings. Exchanged love's bright and fragile glow for the glitter and the rouge. And then they were swept for the deluge. Notice my ring hit that. To close it. I got rid of the fire and the water because I don't need to be that excited. The coffee's enough. Oh, there's a dark bit, just a leftover. There's just a little bit of stuff left over on these videos that I'm making, sort of like a postscript really, because I got up this morning and I saw, oh my God, there's another plane crash. This time in Philadelphia, of all places, the home of the founding fathers, the Center for Academic Scientific Research. My God, what does this mean? I'll get my other hat. I'll put my other hat on. Okay. So, we've had wildfires, we've had plane crashes, many of them. We've had people driving into streets full of people, killing them in SUVs. Don't buy one of them. We've had school shootings for Africa, millions of them. Well, I exaggerate, not millions, but you know, millions is it's a word, yeah, it means lots. Sometimes the news people can get a bit, when you use the word millions, they can be a bit pragmatic about the actual meaning of these words. They're not strictly meaningful in this way. Millions means a lot. A lot. And so, what does it mean that we have a lot of these events which strike us as being unusual? Well, we live in unusual times, and that song that I sang just now was called Before the Deluge, and it talks about how people are living their lives just before the whole world comes crashing down, and they're dead, killed in a wildfire, killed, all their property destroyed in a wildfire, killed in a school shooting, killed in the moment that just a young child, she's singing the words of, who's that woman? I can never remember her name. Not Shania Twain, she was the old one. Who's that woman? My God. Anyway, they were singing her words. Swift, Taylor Swift. They were singing, young children singing the words of Taylor Swift. Oh, the next minute they were dead. What does this mean? Strange signs in the universe. And the ancient philosophers used to say that you can't see God. You only know God exists because of the signs of the times in the universe. That is what tells you that God exists. Okay? Now, when you see a sign like man evolved from the apes, and here's man is an ape, and now he's a human. Yeah? This is a sign. God makes a tremendous sign that perhaps there's something greater than a human, that a human can evolve even more into an angel perhaps, and even into God himself. Okay? So, it's the signs that God gives of God's presence in the world, in that the events that we witness around us are not just random. Yeah? Not random at all. And cause and effect, at the very bottom of it, breaks down, and a particle will go through two slits at the same time. The laws of probability break down at the microscopic level, the particle level. And it's an interesting thing to look into science and physics and all these things. Yet it's a frivolous concern for human beings who should be concerned more with morality and the evolution of man to higher forms than just physically getting up in the morning, going through the motions of going to bed at night and thinking that that's all there is. You know? And just like every day that we live is followed by a little sleep, every life that we live is followed by a little sleep. And afterwards, when we wake up in the morning, we can't even remember the previous day if we were behaving ourselves. I can't remember what I did yesterday, because I don't need to, because I've learned my lessons of the day. Yet, if you don't learn your lessons, you accumulate all this past. You accumulate it all. You can't forget about it because God won't allow you to forget about it because you've got lessons that you haven't learned and you need to reprocess all this stuff to learn those lessons for you. And this doesn't stop even when you have learned your lessons and you are not processing it today. There are things that you did 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40, even when you were just a child, that you're going to have to process out of yourself. You're going to have to suffer for to get through them and learn your lessons from them. Okay. Now, one way we can avoid learning the mistakes of other people learning their lessons is we can see what happens to them. And so the ancient philosophers used to say that how a man dies, the method, if he dies in an aeroplane crash or he's burnt up in a fire or somebody stabs him 125,000 times, then the method of his dying has got to be read like a sign, as God's handwriting on the person's life. Yeah. Now, if everything's just random, people who say that everything is just anything can happen to you, then they think that only that bad things can happen to good people. Yeah. And it's simply not true. And good people have good fortune. If you are morally wise, which means virtuous. Virtue comes from wisdom, which comes from a study of good and evil and a practice of what you know to be good and to avoid practicing what you know as being evil. And when you do that, you become virtuous. Okay? Now, I used to eat fish. I wouldn't eat meat, but I felt that my diet of just chips and bread and butter was a bit unhealthy for me. So I thought, well, the cod fish live in the sea. I won't eat salmon. I won't eat salmon at all because I know they're farmed in terrible circumstances and they're full of disease and it's just horrible stuff that's going on there in Norway. In fact, the Norwegians are going to have some terrible karma on what they've done with the fish. Yet, I thought, well, the codfish is a fish that swims in the sea, right? And I went to the supermarket and they're selling codfish fillets in batter. Yeah. So I've been getting these and putting them in the microwave and eating them daily, a daily thing, yeah. Living on codfish in batter. And it wasn't so bad. But it didn't taste quite like, it's a bit coddy, but it doesn't taste like real cod, But it is supposed to be real cod. But the reason I'm eating codfish is because God, the Creator, needs me as a servant of His work to find out what's going on with the codfish. Because there's something going on there and the world needs to know about it, and I need to know about it. How am I going to find out, except I eat codfish until all of a sudden I say, wait a minute, let's look a bit more into this thing that I'm eating. Okay. I'll take 5. Well, that's a complicated video. Cod, all right. Now, cod and God is pretty similar word, right? Cod and God, go and co. Now, K-O, co. Ka is food, and ko is the highest food. Yet, it's not just food, it's fruit. It's fruit. Like ko, a song can be a fruit, a ko of a human being. You play a song, and that's a ko, a highest fruit of a human being. Probably is the highest fruit of a human being, actually. If you took Bob Dylan's The Times They Are Changing, it's the highest fruit of his life. To write such a song, give it to the world, yeah, it's a fruit of a man's life. And so cod da. Now, when you have when a song a word ends abruptly like cod, it's actually coda, coda. Now da, that's the Father, and so God the Creator. So coda is the fruit of the Creator. Okay, this is what God has given to man as the highest thing for him to eat, right? Now, what used to happen when man worshipped God, now to worship God doesn't mean to bow down like this, it's just to respect and put God as the highest authority in the world, to respect God. Yeah. When man respected God, as all native peoples did, some still do. I'm a native person, I'm a native druid, I'm a druid, a Celtic druid, yeah. And so, as a druid, I respect God through nature. Now, in Norway, the only people living in Norway were living around the edges of the fjords and next to the sea. And Norway is a barren, frozen country, and therefore the sea provides the great nourishment for the people. And there are few people living there because there wouldn't be millions of people living there in such frozen, remote areas. Every year the cod came, and it was always a wish of the people that the cod would come close inshore, okay? Because if they didn't come close inshore, they couldn't catch so many of these cod, or any of them. So it was necessary, because they were given by nature the small boats that they could make and things like this, or to fish from the shore and so on. And so they were able, with their limited technology limited by nature so that it doesn't damage nature, so the cod will be there for eternity. God would bring the cod to the Norwegians every year, and they would go out and catch the cod, and they would worship God for giving them the cod, thank God, to be thankful, and hope that God each year would produce a cod, and if they behaved themselves and led virtuous lives, the cod would appear. And if they weren't so virtuous, not so many cod would be caught, so they wouldn't be so satisfied with their lives. Yeah? And so this was how native peoples knew about God, because they saw the effect. Long term, they didn't have YouTube to watch, they didn't have television to watch, they didn't lead busy lives. Their lives were lived in nature, watching nature, and listening to the stories of their ancestors, and worshipping their elders, so listening to the stories of the elders. And so in this way they learned about God, and they knew that if it was a difficult year, then the people had to be more virtuous next year, and then the cod will come again. And so the Norwegian humanity lived in a harmonious relationship between the cod for thousands of years. And what's happened is they've lost respect for this cod. They don't know that cod is God, and what they do to the cod might have some grave consequences on them. And so they've gone out to sea and they've just caught all the cod, and they haven't just caught them where the cod are. They've waited for the cod to gather over their spawning grounds, where the cod are making love. This is God making love at the bottom of the sea, together, making little baby cod, yeah? And traditionally, native peoples have not interfered with breeding animals and fish and animals. They've allowed them to breed and only taken them at other times. So the breeding season has been sacred. Okay. Now man goes with these great big metal floating factory ships, right? And he parks on top of the spawning grounds, and he catches all the cod in the biggest net you've ever seen and leaves them in the net, sucks them out of the net using big vacuum hoses into this factory ship where it's all messed up, pulped up, messed up. Okay, and then these cod are not carefully filleted, carefully handled, and each piece, it's just like goes through a machine that just like rips all the cod to pieces. So there's a little bit of good cod comes out. Okay, so okay, that's the stuff we'll send to the fish and chip shops. Then most of it ends up in big blocks, square blocks of ice, right? Big square blocks of ice. It's hard to find out about this stuff. You have to really search YouTube to find anything about this. And then what they do is, what's left of the catch, they don't want to process, because if they process the catch, all the catch, then what happens is there's so much cod hits the market because they're overfishing, right? There's more fish than anybody needs. The price of cod drops, all right? This is their thinking, okay? So what they do is they keep the cod in some kind of nets, right? I haven't been able to find any film of this. This is only recently, the last 3 or 4 years, they've been doing this. And they keep the cod for as long as 60 days, something like this. At which time they don't feed the cod because that would be expensive, and the cod don't like to be fed. The cod refuse to eat the stuff that they feed them. And so they can't feed the cod, so they starve the cod to death, really. And so the cod is just living in its own crap and dying in great numbers, and some of it's surviving. And every so often they process the cod so that the price of cod doesn't drop. And so the poor cod are living this like uncod-like life at the hands of these devils. The devil himself is a cod farmer. Yeah. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's so ridiculous. I mean, that man could be so stupid to make this. It's just like, to me it's hilarious. It's just like, it's like some bad movie, you know. And so anyway, I watch these blocks of cod that they keep in the system until they want to get rid of them. And then they saw them up into squares, little squares. It's all these bits of like 10,000 cod mixed together, all the DNA all mixed up. And then they squish them. They squish them into something that looks like a fish fillet. But you've got to read the fine print to know. You've got to know what the words mean, you know, and all this, to even know that it might not be a fish fillet because it looks like a fish fillet. It says fish fillet on the packet, but it doesn't quite taste as good as a fish and chip shop cod, you know. I would say it's about a quarter of the taste, a quarter of the quality. And so you have this squashed up fillet of cod, covered in batter so it's disguised a bit better. And then, I said I put it in the microwave. I don't put them in the microwave. I actually, up until recently, I only had a microwave for cooking, but now I have an air fryer, very, very fine object. And so I put it in my air fryer, together with a few chips, and I can eat fish. I was eating fish and chips. Not anymore. Because it's not morally right for me to eat. Now I know what happens to the cod. You know, it's kept to starved to death like Auschwitz. Like Auschwitz was at the end of the war, when the Americans destroyed all the infrastructure, so there was no food to feed the Auschwitz people. Now we got the cod Auschwitz. And so, am I going to eat the bodies of the Auschwitz sufferers? You know, they've killed them in these nets. They've sucked them out. They've sucked them out through pipes, and they've processed their bodies, their fat of their bodies, into hamburgers, called them fish fillets of fresh cod caught in the ocean, you know, sold them to me. Am I going to eat this? Definitely not. Okay, so now I can't eat fish. It's the end of it. You know, I thought I found the fish that I could eat, but I can't. You know, and so it's only right that I tell the world about the poor cod. Maybe you 20 viewers might hear about it if you ever get this far into the video. Probably not. It'll probably be the children of the future in 200 years' time might be watching this, find out why they don't know anything about cod anymore, that what happened to the cod fish, how the Norwegians like caught them all, catch them all, and process them into salmon feed. Okay, yeah, they got to feed the salmon on something, so mashed up cod would probably be what they use. And so all the stuff that ends up on the floor of the factory ship gets all swept up into these ice blocks, and you know, you don't know what the hell you're eating really, or how long it's been in the machine. One little piece of it from 3 weeks ago mixed up with all the catch from today. I don't know. You can imagine, it's horrific. And so, do we eat these cod? We cannot eat these cod here. It's necessary to understand that you can't have anything to do with Norway. You know, you can't have Norwegian businesses. You've just got to treat the Norwegian businesses like you did the Nazis. You know, they're the people who did the Auschwitz to the cod. All right, so you cannot have anything to do with Norwegians anymore. I'm sorry. They're just like foreboding. Yeah, forget it. They've done so much harm to the world in what they've done. And the salmon too, of course the salmon was the sacred fish of the North American Indians, and they've just turned that into, you know, they've got a supermarket full of salmon that you can't even buy. You know, you look at it, you walk past it and go somewhere else. You walk past all the vegetable section because you know that's all poison, and there's nothing to buy in the supermarket. That's the end of it really. And so hopefully the bread that I buy is not genetically modified. And the butter, well, I buy my butter from Irish. I buy Irish butter. Hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, touch wood, and so on. So, thank goodness for RFK Jr. hopefully going to do something about this. And so we see the plane crashes. So now we come back to the plane crashes, because that's what this video is about. And we start to see the sign of the times now that RFK Jr. is being interrogated by the Senate police. Okay, now I'm going to take 5 because that was a long story about the cod. I'll take 5 and I'll carry on again in a minute. Keep a fire through the human race. Let your prayers drift on into space. You never know what will be coming down. Perhaps a better world is drawing near. Just as easy it could all disappear, along with whatever meaning you might have found. Don't let the uncertainty turn you around. Now you're nowhere to be found. Into the dancer you have grown, from a seed somebody else has thrown. Go on ahead and throw some seeds of your own, and somewhere between the time you arrive, the time you go, play like Lisa, you were alive, you never know. I suppose what remains to be talked about is the plane crash. And the one that happened this morning came on the heels of the one that happened yesterday, which I talked about, which is the first day or second day of JFK's hearing, and how the people behaved so badly in Washington that a plane had to crash and burn, okay, kill many people and the military, to show the conflict coming between the military and the civilian parts of the population. Now another day goes by and now we have another one, because now it's like all the attacks about the medical people against RFK Jr. Yeah. And now in Philadelphia there's a medical plane that was carrying all Mexicans on board, carrying Mexicans on a mercy mission to America. And this thing now crashes and burns in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia means brotherly love. That's the meaning of the word. Philadelphia. Love of brother for brother. Love of family. Love of offspring. Yeah, that's what it means. Philadelphia. Okay. And it's the original place of the founding fathers of America. It's where the Liberty Bell is. And it used to be like the capital of America before Washington, so you know, yeah, the ancestors are not happy about what's going on with the RFK Jr. hearings, yeah. Because it's very interesting, when the plane crash happened, I went and I searched the news and I read something about that plane crash, and then I saw another article talking about the survivors of this other Washington DC plane crash that killed all these ice figure skating dancers, yeah? Dancers. The entertainment industry. And this ice skating, figure skating thing, it's interesting, the two people who were killed in it were a Russian couple who left Russia, did the dirty on Russia and escaped to the West. And so they're gone now, yeah. Very young people. And this ice skating thing is a place which draws to it certain kind of people, and one of those kinds of people drawn to it are young girls, yeah, young girls and young boys, and they're not clad in very much clothing, yeah, they're a bit of an exhibition of certain parts of the body which some people would say is not fit to show in public, and in some positions sprawled, legs agape over the backs of male over female, female over male. You might question the serious, whether this is a serious pursuit or whether it's of a frivolous nature. And it's strongly tied to the entertainment industry. People like Taylor Swift and these sort of characters model the same in the music industry, and then on the movie screens in Hollywood where the fires have been. Okay, so there's a certain correlation between these things, and what I get out of it is that it's frivolous pursuits, frivolity, yeah, versus a serious way of life. Now, it's not for me to say to people, you shouldn't be doing figure skate dancing, yeah. It's not for me to say that, because God draws everybody to whatever they do with their lives. Yet certain industries, people aren't called to the figure skating. A young person is not called to figure skating just normally by God. They've got to be enticed into it by an adult. Their parents have to buy them little skating boots and pay large amounts of money for them to go to ice rinks and then to be trained by ice skating professionals, and there's a whole industry involved in this thing. And it's an industry which may also attract paedophiles, yeah? Because where you have slightly clad both young girls and young boys, you will find homosexuals and paedophiles, okay, attracted to these. Historically, there is an attraction for the likes of this kind, yeah. Hollywood too has an attraction for these kinds of people. That Jeffrey fellow, whose name I can't remember, must be the devil himself, Epstein, and all the people associated with this bunch. Okay, so it's a message. God makes a message to these people, gives them a sign to say, your days are numbered, yeah? Your days are numbered. And the funny thing is in 1961, the same thing happened. Mankind has already had this sign once before, in 1961. So I said to myself, a plane crashed, and all of the figure skating team of the American figure skating team were killed, all wiped out in a single airplane crash in Belgium, on their way over to Russia, I think, or Czechoslovakia, something like that. So I said to myself, and there's an east-west thing there, I said to myself, I wonder what happened around about this time. This was in February 1961. So I go, just a few weeks before JFK is put into the presidency. Okay? And now just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump is in the presidency. And RFK Jr. was going for the presidency and is now being appointed, or being examined to be appointed, to his role. Right? And JFK is in the heavens, his ancestor is in the heavens, watching all of this stuff, right? So there's signs now. The plane was observed from the JFK building in Washington, yeah? It's a sign, the ancestors are watching, you know? It's a time of all of us examining our virtues. Are we doing what's right, or are we part of the problem? You know, they once said, the leader of the MC5 said, the time has come for each and every one of us to decide, are we part of the problem, or are we part of the solution? You must choose, brothers, you must choose. I'll leave you on that note. Let's see if we can find the rest of that song. Some of them were dreamers, some of them were fools, who were making plans and thinking of the future. And the brave and crazy wings of youth, they went running around in the rain, and the feathers once so fine grew torn and tattered, and in the end they traded their tired wings for the resignation that really brings. In exchange, love's bright and fragile glow for the glitter and